Hey ladybugs, how we all doing? You got Sadie and Sorry there on the camera. I decided to go with Sorry, S-A-R-I. I really like it. I think it's cute. I'm just picking another outfit, so I thought I would talk to you guys while I'm doing that, and I think I've picked one. I picked the babies we're going to dress today. I love the Brooklyn kit too. Today we're going to talk about, because we talked about some of the bad things about the community, so today we're going to talk about the good things about Reborns. But first I want to address a question that one of my new subscribers, Jen, had, and I thought that would be a good way to start. So let me move Sorry and Sadie real quick. There we go. So the question she had was how to get a toddler without getting scammed. And I can only give general advice on this because obviously I don't know everybody in the community, but the trick to getting a toddler without getting scammed is threefold. Number one, you have to pick the right people. So you have to make sure that the people that you're buying from are reputable, generally known in the community is a good thing. That you have some safeguards, like the fact that you have a video call with this person. I know a lot of scammers won't do video calls because they can't prove ownership. So you definitely want to do a video call to prove ownership. You want to make sure that this person has references, and not references that are completely unknown in the community. Like I've had scammers that I've asked for references give me references, and they're people that have nothing to do with the community. They're not in any groups. They don't have any posts about babies. That's not a good reference, okay? You need to have a reference that is in the community. And you want a reference that is fairly well known in the community. Because just like you need to check on the seller in the community, you also need to check on the references. Do your homework on the references. Check their pages, check to see if they're in any groups, check to see if they're friends with anybody in the community. And if they are, talk to those people. It really comes down to doing your due diligence. If you do what you need to do to make sure that you're not going to get scammed, the chances that you'll get scammed go down dramatically. Now, obviously, if there's always a chance that you could get scammed, even someone who's well known in the community could scam somebody. I could scam somebody. I wouldn't, but I could. But so there's no guarantees, but even with someone who's very reputable and well known in the community like I am. But let me just say this, your chances of being scammed go down dramatically if you do your due diligence. Don't just, a lot of people ask for references, and when the other person shoots back a bunch of names, they're like, okay, they have references. That's good enough. No, check with the references. Ask the references which groups they're in, which people they've done business with. Don't just accept the references. Now, if you're talking about somebody who's, I had an experience with somebody who was well known in the community and a very good friend of mine for many years, who scammed me unbelievably. And so you can't guarantee until you have the baby in your hands that you're not going to get scammed. There's no 100% way, unless you're going to meet the person in person and you're going to pick up the baby and swap the money for the baby. In that case, you can pretty much guarantee that you won't get scammed because you're going to see the baby and pass the money off. But I'll tell you exactly what happened. I was friends with Valerie Kruger. She's a sculptor now, and she's got a lot of people who support her. But before she was a sculptor, she and I had an arrangement, and I don't mind saying her name because she scammed me horribly and has since blocked me so that she doesn't have to pay it back or ever do anything about it. And that to me is offensive. We had agreed. She basically was having a really hard time financially. I had two, I want to say they were the Quinn kits by Bountiful Baby. They were the crying babies. I had the Wake and Asleep. She needed money. I offered to give her the babies, free of charge, just to help her out. She could paint them and then sell them. She's really good at painting. And so I sent them to her. And then I'd also sent her money for her phone on a couple occasions, and rent money a few times. And then we had an arrangement where she had owed me a large sum of money. And so we agreed that I would provide the kits, 10 kits, I would pay for the kits, and and I would pay for whatever hair or supplies she needed. I sent her probably 20 ounces of mohair and human hair. I mean, it was just tons of hair, bags and bags, probably 30, 40 bags of hair. And I sent her two of the kits, and um, all she had to do was paint and root them. And there was no time frame, so she could take her time. I wasn't being impatient in any way. And she got and then the other thing was that she was going to sculpt a baby for me to make, we were going to make silicone out of it. And so I had sent her like 40 pounds of the Sculpey live effects clay, which is very expensive. It cost me around $100 to get all that clay. And I sent all that to her, and weighting beads and paints and solvent. And I mean, I pretty much sent everything she could possibly need. And she messaged me for about a year saying that she was working on it and blah, blah, blah. And then one day out of the blue, she blocks me. I didn't hear from her for about 4 years. And then when I finally did hear from her, then she found another reason to block me and still didn't pay me back or do anything. So that was a person who was incredibly well known and a very good friend of mine who scammed me hard. You know, she really did run me through the ringer, and it was not cool. So there's no guarantee that you're not going to get scammed, even with someone who's very well known in the community. However, you can decrease your chances of getting scammed by these are the outfits we're going to use today. We're going to use this one on Soleil. And we're going to use this one on Clarabelle. This is one of my favorites. I stress one of my favorites because I say that a lot. And then we're going to use this one on Aniston. So anyway, so there's no guarantee that you're not going to get scammed. But like I said, if you do your due diligence and you do your homework, the chances that you'll get scammed are much slimmer. You can really cut your chances of being scammed down by doing the right thing. Here's Miss Clarabelle. She is the Lyra by Ping Lao. So yeah, start with a reputable seller. Make sure you get references. Make sure you check with those references. And you can absolutely message somebody who has toddlers and ask them if they have any that they'd like to sell. There's no harm in asking, and what's the worst they can say? No, right? So there's nothing wrong with asking someone, if someone has a lot of toddlers like me or someone else, to message them and say, hey, you know, could you by any chance, you know, would you want to sell any of your toddlers? And if they say no, then it's no, but if, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. So you could do that. For those of you that don't know, my name is April Holland on Facebook, and I'm in many of the groups. I also admin many of the groups, so you guys are more than welcome to find me on Facebook. I'm also starting a TikTok called Reborn Nation that matches the group here on YouTube. So if you guys would like to join that TikTok, I'm going to start doing some TikTok videos. I'd like to get that up and running. I don't have an Instagram. I do have an Instagram, but not for this business that I'm trying to start. So I will definitely try to get that in place, but definitely you can search for it on TikTok. So that's the best advice I can give you, Jen, is just to start with a reputable person. Always check references, always do video calls. Yeah, and that's the best you can do. You can't ever, unless, like I said, unless you're going to meet the person in person and exchange the money for the baby, you cannot guarantee that you won't get scammed, but you can reduce your chances of being scammed. I have done hundreds of sales and hundreds of trades and hundreds of, you know, buys over the years. And I can honestly say that I've only been scammed maybe 4 times, maybe 5. So 4 to 5, somewhere in there. But I try to stay with the same few people that I do most of my business with. Although I do occasionally branch out, and it usually works out good for me. Although occasionally it's very rarely been a negative experience. That's all I can say about that. So that's the best advice I can give. I am an admin in Safe Trades Reborn, so you can look me up that way. And I'm more than willing to talk on Facebook, and you can always ask me questions about people, and I can do some research for you as well. Remember, it's April Holland, and I am admin of Safe Trades Reborn. I'm an admin of For the Love for Babies. I'm an admin in Kinder Clothes Reborn Boutique. I'm an admin in Authentic Reborn Trades. So you can look me up in any of those groups as under the admins, and you can message me, and I'm more than willing to do whatever I can to ensure that people don't get scammed. Obviously, I'm not a miracle worker. I can't do, I can't make everything perfect, but I can at least tell you if I know somebody or if any of my friends know somebody, and, kind of give you advice on how to do the best way not to get scammed. Okay. So, that's the best I can do. And that's the answer to your question. So let's talk about, we've talked about some of the negative things about having reborns and being in the reborn community. And my friend Tammy, she wanted to talk about some of the positive things about having reborns. So let's do that. So that's what we're going to do today. So as we all know, reborns have a physical benefit to your health. Here's Miss Clarabelle. Doesn't she look cute in this? They can lower your blood pressure. They can help with insomnia. They can help with anxiety. They can help with depression. They can help with grief if you're grieving the loss of a child or the fact that you can't have children, or you're grieving the loss of a pregnancy. They can immensely help with that. They actually can help older people with Alzheimer's. They can help, not only can they slow down the progression of Alzheimer's, but in some cases, they have actually been known to reverse slightly some of the damage caused by Alzheimer's. So that's really impressive as well. They are good for anxiety, for people who have social anxiety, or here's Solea. Solea is the Lena kit. So they absolutely help with Alzheimer's. They help with anxiety. If you have social anxiety, some people say that taking a reborn out with you in public helps their anxiety quite a bit. They help with blood pressure and heart rate. They actually slow down your heart rate and lower blood pressure. They cause a chemical reaction in the brain that causes oxytocin and whatever the other one is, serotonin or something, to be released so that it makes you feel good. It makes you feel relaxed. They can help with insomnia. If you're having insomnia, if you play with your reborns or hold them before you go to bed, it can actually help you sleep. And then there's the benefits of the community. You can make some really amazing friends in the reborn community, and it's really worth it. I have some of the best friends. Now, granted, I had 2 friends that were not in the reborn community that I met long before I was in the reborn community, who have since passed away. But you can't, some of the best friends, other than those 2 that I have made in the reborn community. This community is full of positive and encouraging and supportive women, and it is an incredibly, and men, but mainly women. It is some of the relationships I have made are the best relationships I've ever had in my life, and so that's one of the benefits of the community. Another benefit of the community is obviously the one that allows you to change and add to your collection. So that's definitely a benefit. Look at her. She looks so cute. Here, let me show you. Let me do her hair. So yeah, so, there's that benefit as well, which is the benefit, as I said, to add to or change your collection, which, it would be I think it would be incredibly difficult to do that without the community. I don't know. I guess you could do it on eBay, but there are so many scams on eBay that I really prefer to do all my business with people that I've met on Facebook. And people from the groups, because there's a level of accountability in the groups that you don't get on eBay. Not that you can't be scammed in the groups, you can, but it's much less likely, especially if it's people that have been in the community a long time and have a reputation. Like, for instance, me, I'll just use me as an example. I've been in the community a long time. I have a really amazing reputation in the community. I'm known as someone of my word. I'm known as someone who does exactly what she says she's going to do. And I think you have to weigh the reputation against the risk when you're looking at the chances of being scammed. The chance that I would throw away my reputation for any doll is very, very slim. You know what I mean? Like, there would have to be some serious mental health issues or situations in my life that would, I can't imagine any situation where I would scam somebody. But I'm not saying it's impossible. Everybody is capable of it. But I would not throw away the reputation that I have taken years to build over a doll. Sorry, but that just, to me, is not something I would do. And that's one of the reasons that going through the community and finding your dolls through the community is a good thing, is because very few people who have a reputation like mine that's very long-standing and very, very good reputation would actually risk their reputation just to scam somebody out of a doll. You know what I mean? Generally, if you're going to get scammed, it's by people who make a living out of scamming people. It is not impossible, as I told you with my experience with Valerie Kruger, but it is highly unlikely that someone who has built a long-standing reputation would scam you. What drives me crazy, though, is that all these people support Valerie and they don't really care to hear about how she scammed me and took advantage of me. And that bothers me. But it is what it is. So, like, that's another benefit to the community, is the community does hold people accountable, at least in some degree. Obviously, people who just make fake profiles and, close them out as soon as they scam somebody, they obviously don't care about the community or how the community is going to hold them accountable. But people who have been in the community and worked hard to build a reputation do care. And so that is another level of accountability that the community is responsible for, and that's a good thing. The other benefit to the community is that it's support, even if you don't have very many dolls, you can share pictures of your dolls, and most people are pretty positive. I mean, there are those who are slightly negative, but it's rare. I mean, I have found that the community is a wonderful group of women and a few men, but women mainly, who are very supportive and very positive and just a good bunch of ladies. I have rarely found a better bunch of ladies than the women I've met in the community. So that is definitely a plus side of the community. Not only are they there when I want to share my dolls, and they're there to say, oh, how pretty they are, and give me support that way. But if I'm going through a hard time, I have a whole plethora of friends in the community that I know I can message day or night, and someone will be there for me if I need it. And that's an amazing, amazing thing in your life, to have that kind of support, The other good thing about Reborns is that it helps with boredom. They can help with weight loss. You can walk with your Reborns, and that can help with weight loss. It's just feeling better. I guess the way I look at it is Reborns help you to feel better overall, like in a general sense. And feeling better can lead to a huge amount of positive effects. You know what I mean? Like, just feeling better in general can make you feel really, really, actually, you know what? I'm going to swap hers because these will match Clarabelle better. So I'm going to take these off Clarabelle and put these on Clarabelle because they're a little bit off-white, and what she's wearing is a little bit off-white. So yeah, so definitely there's a lot of benefits to Reborns. There's a lot of benefits to being in the community. There's a lot of benefits to building a good reputation, and to holding on to that reputation. I don't necessarily sell my Reborns very often. Occasionally I do. But I consider this a business in the sense that my Reborns are investments, they're commodities, and should I need to sell them in the future, I see that as security. I have around 100 Reborns. You figure they're close to $1,000 a piece, some a little more, some a little less. That's $100,000. That's pretty good security to have, in your home. And so I really do consider the community a huge asset to me and to my business. You know, now I'm just starting, you know, barely starting out to kind of make a business out of this by doing my YouTube channel. Just starting out. I've only been doing this since May. And so I'm hoping in the future this could be a business in the sense that I could then, you know, I want to make a business out of gifting reborns to people and making people's dreams come true. That's really what this is about. So in that sense, it is a business to me. And I'm not going to, you know, let anything stand in the way of that by scamming somebody over a doll. So I think a lot of people in the community who have long-standing profiles and have been in the community for a long time feel the same way. They're not going to waste their reputations over getting one doll, you know? Although it's not impossible, so still do your due diligence. The other positive things that I think my reborns bring me, and we've talked very briefly about depression and anxiety, but I have some depression because of my Ehlers-Danlos and the pain that I have from it. I get a lot of pain sometimes, and it really brings me down, especially when I have like a downturn of my condition, when I go through a bad spell. The condition is kind of like this. You plateau and then you go down, and then you plateau and then you go down. There is no coming back up. So as things get worse for me, you know, I'll eventually be wheelchair bound. And as I lose different things that I used to be able to do that I can't do anymore, that's really depressing. It's really depressing to face that, to face the idea of it's like watching your body die while you're still living in it. You know, it's really hard. And I know that when I'm feeling especially down, I can come down here and dress my dolls and take pictures and just sit with them, and I feel better. You know, the depression lifts and the anxiety goes away, and I just feel at peace. This is my peaceful space, you know, this nursery and the boys' nursery as well. As you guys know, speaking of the boys' nursery, let me get off topic a little bit. I did not do a video last night because it was 4th of July and Evie was freaking, oh my goodness. But the way the downstairs, so the way the basement is, it's a finished basement. And so there's this room, which has the slider door, and it's like a regular normal bedroom, right? But across the way, there is a smaller bedroom that is basically under our driveway. So it has a door and it has a little window, but not to the outside. It has a window to the hallway. But the rest of it is underground. So it's very buffered from noise. So as she got more and more worked up, I eventually brought her downstairs and threw a big giant beanbag in the boys' nursery, and we hunkered down there for the night, and we couldn't hear anything in there. So that was really nice because it enabled her to calm down. I always worry the older she gets that she's going to have a heart attack one of these days from fireworks, but she was able to calm down, and that was really nice. So going back to the reborns, you know, when I feel really down or I feel really depressed or I feel super anxious about something, I just come down. And yes, sometimes I make videos, but other times I just sit here by myself in this room and I dress them and I do their hair and I snuggle with them, and it just makes the world make sense. It makes me feel good. You know, it releases all that oxytocin and all the serotonin, and it just brings peace. My mind calms down, the pain starts to fade. It really does help with physical pain. I can't say that enough. So that's pretty amazing, you know, to me, that's pretty amazing. There's Miss Clarabelle. Doesn't she look pretty? I think these match perfectly on her. All right, let's dress Miss Aniston. Tomorrow we should dress Morgan because she's sitting over there giving me her little crazy girl smirk, and she looks like she wants to get dressed, so we should dress her tomorrow. Here's Miss Aniston. Yes, pretty little Aniston. And Aniston is the Ella May by Janny DeLang. I want to thank you guys for all the comments and all the likes. Well, there hasn't been a lot of likes, but there has been a few, so thank you for that. You guys are really helping the algorithm. I've heard a few people tell me that I've shown up on their feed, so that's really amazing that I'm actually getting out there, and the algorithm, excuse me, is putting me on people's feed. I think that's awesome. I'm super stoked about that. So thank you for all the support, guys, and the time that you take to like and comment. It really means something to me, and it makes a huge difference. So I just wanted to thank you guys for that. because that is amazing. I'm really excited about that. Here's Miss Aniston. We'll do her hair after we dress her. So what are the other positive benefits of reborns? Let me think. So they also help with the empty nest syndrome, like I've been going through in the last couple of years when your kids are moving out. It helps with parents who are grieving a child or a pregnancy. It helps that way. Because the reality is if you go to the hospital to have a baby and your baby passes away, it doesn't change the fact that your body still aches for that child and your arms still long to hold that child. So even though you have no baby to hold, it doesn't change the fact that your body thinks that you should. And so there is that longing and that ache to hold a child. And reborns can really help with that. They can really help with the grieving process and make things look a little more positive for people who have experienced that. I have experienced that, but in a different way. The child that I lost was mine, but wasn't mine. I had given a baby up for adoption when I was young, and the child had passed away a few years later from an accident. And so I kind of felt like she wasn't mine, so it wasn't as bad as someone who loses a child. But then when I was, right before I had my oldest daughter, I was pregnant, and I gave birth too early, and my baby died. And so that one I did really grieve, because that one was my child. Even though the other one was technically my child, I didn't feel like she was mine. I'd given her up for adoption. And then I lost Malia in 2015. 2002. Sorry. I don't know what I was thinking of, but and that was my child, and that was very difficult. I was 5 months pregnant when I went into labor, and she was born, and they asked me if I wanted life-saving measures, and I said that I basically wanted time to hold her and to be with her, because I didn't want anything that she knew about this world to be pain and loneliness. I wanted her to know that she had a mom that loved her. So I said, let me hold her for an hour, and if she makes it, then we'll do life-saving measures. But I didn't want her to just be in an incubator and pass away. And she also had spinal bifida, and just no pain. I wanted her to know my arms. And so that was my decision. And, some people over the years have agreed with my decision, and some people have not. And I understand that everybody has their own opinions about that situation. I made the choice. I don't think in that situation there are any good choices. I think that you have to pick whatever seems to you to be the least bad out of a lot of bad choices. I made the decisions that I made. I have no regrets about those decisions. I did what I had to do in that moment. And my daughter passed away knowing she was loved and wanted. And that's how I feel about it. I'm sure that other people have been in a similar situation and have made different decisions, and I have no, in any way, I am not knocking their decisions in any way. I think that in that situation, when you go into labor that early, there are no good choices. There's just the least bad out of a few bad options, and you just have to make the best decision you can make at the time. And that's what I did. I don't regret it. I think that it was the best decision for me and for my child. And if somebody else made a different decision, I would in no way think that their decision was the wrong decision. I think in a situation like that, and we're talking, 2002, quite a while ago. So they didn't have as many of the life-saving measures as they have now. Would I make a different decision now? I don't know. I'm not in that situation right now, and I can't even think to put myself in that situation. I wouldn't want to. So, I tend to look at life as a glass half full situation. I can always find the positive in any situation I'm in, and I try to, because there really is no benefit to being negative about life. All that does is bring more negativity into your life. So I choose to be positive, and the way I look at life is I don't regret my decisions, because my decisions have made me who I am and put me where I am. And I'm okay with that. I've made bad decisions in my life. I don't think that that was one of them, but somebody else might disagree. But I've made poor decisions in my life, and you know what? I don't regret any of them. we can only learn from our past, you know? I don't know if I would make a different decision today. Like I said, I'm not in that situation. I don't want to pretend to be in that situation. So, um, you know, I'm just not in that situation. If you were in that situation and you made a different decision, please don't doubt yourself or go back and constantly what if, or I could have, should have, would have. You know, you can't do that with the past. You know, you just have to, this is what you decided, this is where you put yourself, and you can't change that now. So please don't kick yourselves about decisions you've made in the past. You know, all we can do is make the best decision we can with the knowledge we have at the time, and hope that we're doing the right thing. But it doesn't do any good to think what if, or I could have, or I should have, or, you know, none of that. That is counterproductive, and it doesn't help you to get anywhere in life, you know. All we can do is make the best decision with the information we have at the time, and then hope that we learn something from it. There's Miss Aniston. She's so pretty. I think that everybody could doubt something they've done in the past, but what good does that do to doubt what we've done? We've made the decisions that we've made. We've put ourselves in the beds that we've put ourselves in, and all we can do is try to learn from that situation, and not find ourselves in a difficult situation again, you know? Obviously, if you're going to go into labor early, there's nothing you can do about that. That's not your fault. There's nothing that can be done. That is just the way it is. So please don't blame yourselves if you've been in a situation like that, because that is not your fault, and it is not anything that you could control. You know, I highly respect women who have been in that situation, because I've been in that situation, and I know how difficult it is to make those choices. So please don't ever look back and think, oh, maybe I should have made a different decision, because you can't change it. You know, your things are what they are. And once you're 1 minute past that situation, it's in the past. And you can't change the past. All you can do is make the best decision you can do with the information you have at the time. And then hope that if you're ever in a similar situation in the future, that you'll have some education and some knowledge about what you should do. And that doesn't just go for pregnancy decisions. That goes for any decision, you know. All we can do is try to learn from where we've been, and try to be the best versions of ourselves every single day. I know that every day I strive to change for the better in some way or another. I try to help myself grow and learn. And at the end of the day, I can look myself in the mirror, and I know that I've done the very best that I was able to do with the situation in front of me. So I try not to dwell on decisions I've made in the past. I try not to, you know, oh, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. I try to just say, okay, this is what I did. This is how it turned out. And if I was in a similar situation in the future, I might do something different, but I might not. You know, like I said, you can only make the best decision possible with the information you have in front of you. Doesn't she look pretty? Look at this outfit. This is so pretty. My friend Debbie gave this outfit to me, and I love it. It's one of my favorites. Again, with one of my favorites. I know I say that about so many outfits. I probably have 300 favorites. I just love them. I really, it took me a lot of years to, I had a collection of Reborns, 30 or 40 of them, and I traded constantly. I just was not happy with my collection. But in the last 18 months, I've really settled into loving the collection that I have now, and I'm very content with my collection. So I am expecting a new baby. I'm pretty excited, but she probably won't be here for another week or so. If she gets mailed out on Monday, we should see her late next week or early the following week. Super excited about that. Always happy to see a new baby. And it's one I've been waiting for a long time. I've been looking for. It's the Susu. And the other one that I really want, besides, I've been wanting Susu, Devi, and Vincente. I really want a Vincente. I have been wanting one forever since it came out, and I just cannot find one. So yeah, I want to get a blank Devi kit. I now have Susu on her way, and now I'm just waiting to find a Vincente. And you know, the way I look at it is, I don't look too hard, because when the time is right, the baby that's supposed to be mine will be mine. I have no doubt about it. So I'm pretty excited about having a Vincente. Aniston, are you excited? You're going to have a baby Susu? I'm not sure if I'll make it a boy or a girl, though. I haven't decided yet. I guess we'll see when it gets here. There's Miss Aniston, huh? Yeah, Miss Aniston. Look at these cute little curled up toes. You're so cute. You're so pretty. I just love how she looks. I love those cheeks. She's got the cutest little cheeks. Are you a pretty girl? Say hi to the